Welcome to the second industry day. We do this yearly now. We had one last year and this is our second one. Welcome to Level 6 students, to MA Film Production students, MA Film Practice students. Welcome to the staff that have come as well, and also welcome mostly to all the panellists here, everybody that's going to be coming from industry today to give up their time to come and speak to you and give you some insights, some tips, some good news stories, some horror stories perhaps, that are going to help you with the next step into the industry. This is quite a big deal for the course. Obviously we're here at the BFI. These people are all at the top of their game, so please use this opportunity. It is quite rare to get everybody together like this. So, use the opportunity. A quick word about the rest of the day. After the panel session, we are going to go to the Blue Room, which is just along the corridor, and everybody here is happy to sit in the Blue Room, and you can approach them from your specific areas of interest and specialisms, and maybe have a little bit more of a direct chat about specific things. But please ask questions in this forum, of course, but you have an opportunity for more one-to-one or one-to-group afterwards. If everybody's able to stay behind for a little while, that would be fantastic. Beyond that, we have a Q&A with our special guest, Stephen Woolley, producer, and Edith Bowman will be doing that interview, so I can have a drink. And then in the evening, we have another event which is designed where you can all let your hair down a little bit and meet some more recent alumni and enjoy a drink or two at our expense. So it's a long day, but I really need you to be full of energy and ask all the difficult questions if you can. So what I'm going to do is just introduce everybody here very briefly, just the headlines, and then I'm going to ask everyone to expand a little bit more on what they do and what they can potentially bring to you. So Alice, I'll come to you first. You were here last year, so you know the routine. Alice is from the BFI network. She's a number of different other hats as well. Obviously, Alice can offer some advice on funding opportunities and wider industry tips. David Giles. David is a sound mixer. He's worked on recently on Star Wars, 1917, James Bond. So, we're talking fairly high level. He's here to talk to obviously specifically those interested in sound, but obviously you've got a lot more to bring to it as well. You're an alumni of this course. What year was it again, did you say that?
2012.
2012, so that gives you an insight into what you can achieve in a relatively short time. Myriam, also another alumni of the university, another high achiever. She's been BAFTA nominated for her short film Azaar, and I said to her when I met her that her grad film was the first film that I watched when I arrived at AUB, and I thought they were all going to be as good as that. And of course most of them are. So I've got a special connection to Myriam in that sense. She's a writer-director, and so she can talk to all those interested in writing and directing. Jean-Clement, is that the right pronunciation? Jean-Clement? Soret, who is really world-renowned colour grader. He's not an alumni of the course, but it's fantastic that he's here because Marek is working behind the scenes an awful lot on trying to improve and increase our focus on grading within the post-production part of the course, and to have someone who's worked on Black Mirror, on Chernobyl, on Two Popes, more recently on basically the IMDb, just goes on for about 40 pages, I think. So it's fantastic to have you here. Thank you very much. And Rochelle, who is here from ScreenSkills. You're the careers coordinator, is that right? Now, a number of our former students are doing their applications, and you guys will be looking at it as well. There's a number of training schemes, some money available at ScreenSkills. So that's another branch for you to look into post-university. So enough babbling from me. If I could go to you, Alice, first to just explain a little bit more. And once we've done that, we'll open it up to you guys, obviously. But if Alice can just explain very much what it is, the BFI network and everything else.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm one of 7 talent executives that work in the English regions, and we work for BFI Network, which is the part of the BFI that discovers, develops and supports writers, directors and producers at the very beginning of their careers. So we work with talent that are over 18, not in full-time education, and we will sort of go up to first features. So once you've had your feature produced and distributed, you're sort of no longer eligible for BFI Network support. And we work with filmmakers really in sort of 2 distinctive ways. The main focus of our work is to distribute the National Lottery funds for short film production and early feature development. So part of my role is to oversee that pot of funding in the southwest region. So I'm based at Watershed, by the way. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. So Bournemouth is in my region. So yeah, the main part of the role is to oversee that funding pot, to make recommendations for projects to get funded, and then the ones that are green-lit, I'd exec across them. It's also to be looking for new talent and trying to promote the funds as much as possible. And then the other side of what we do is we run various talent development labs and events for aspiring and emerging writers, directors and producers in the southwest. So for example, we will do writing labs where we'll have a call for scripts and then take writers through a sort of programme of development. We might do a producer school, and we've done some directing workshops as well. So that's a very brief overview of what we do.
Okay, thanks, Alice. Maybe best to go to you next, Rochelle, just to have from your perspective, ScreenSkills.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. So ScreenSkills is an organisation that's funded by the industry and the BFI to ensure that the industry has the right skills and talent for the future. So we do this by doing a lot of research. We have loads of information on our website about careers and different pathways and job avenues and the different job profiles. We also run events as well, networking events. So I'm part of the careers team, and we run an event called Open Doors. It's a 2-hour networking event, and I believe we did one in Bournemouth last year. And it's a great way just to meet industry professionals or hear from a panel of industry experts. We also offer bursaries as well to help with travel, accommodation, training costs, driving lessons and driving licenses. And most importantly, we also do Trainee Finder. So that's our 12-month trainee scheme where you have the chance to work on big film productions or TV drama. So it's really exciting what things that we do.
Okay, thank you. David, your plotted history from the moment you left the course to now?
So this is quite a nice segue, because I actually did, when it was skill set, that's what I did when I came out of university and was a trainee, sound trainee for 3 films on the skill set course, and then one of those mixers took me on under his wing, and then I did 10 films with him until I decided that I should be mixing, and so now I'm a sound mixer.
And can you tell us a bit about what you've been working on? Everyone's excited to hear, obviously.
The most recent is the last film I did with my old mixer was 1917, and I did the splinter unit on that and assisted on the main unit, which was quite special. Mm-hmm. And then I'm a massive Star Wars fan, so getting to do those films was a total privilege, and quite silly and fun in some ways, and very serious and hard work in other ways.
So I think everybody would love to know, as we move on, this sort of specific progression of, obviously the pathway you've taken to now is clearly not just that, it's probably more like this. Even if you could just give us a few words on that.
Yeah,
so just
what, the sort of bumps in the road? Or?
Yeah.
So I was quite lucky and did another alumnus gave me a job whilst I was at university doing a terrible low budget film for £2.60 an hour, and that got me onto the skill set scheme. And then the skill set scheme, I learnt a lot, made a lot of mistakes, took a lot on board, and then what tends to happen with on-set crew is you get in your team and a boss employs, you know, that the HOD will employ someone that they like and they feel gets on with their team and suits their style of working as much as someone who is technically good. And I've found people who seem to like me for whatever reason, and then between that, I wasn't on those films all the time, and so between that I would sort of did things like BBC comedy, that's a really instructive thing because you work really fast, work really hard, and that informs your feature film practice. And yeah, just kind of, it's basically getting in with your team, finding your team, and sticking with them is the way to get through.
So it's finding people you trust and you get on with, and working through the...
Yeah, and trust you as well, and it's very personality based, a lot of that, as much as it is your skill set, which is obviously important as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So more from you in a while. Myriam, similar?
Yeah, so after graduating, I moved back home in Slough and then worked a couple of part-time jobs, just teaching film at workshops and stuff. I then got funding from Creative England to do an iShorts, which I don't know if the scheme is still running or...
No, but it is kind of what our funding's now does. So yeah, it's great that you've come through that route. So it's similar to what we offer now.
And there was also Random Acts, which was a channel for a regional funding thing as well. So I did an iShorts, and then my AUB grad won the RTS award, which took place here, and then the director of NFTS was here, so he got to see a little bit of the grad. And they basically invited me over to attend the course at school. So after about a year and a half of being out of Bournemouth, I went to NFTS, and I did a 2-year MA there, and just graduated earlier last year. And before graduating, I was lucky enough to get on a shadowing scheme for Top Boy, and I got to do a bit of second unit on there. So fingers crossed about hearing about the next season now. But that was my first step onto TV directing. So I've kind of come through public funding route and also education, but a mix of both. Yeah.
I said to you earlier, a number of our students every year apply to the directing MA at NFTS. And a number of them get quite disillusioned because they don't get in first time round. You obviously did because you were spotted at RTS. What's your experience for those people who are thinking of applying? Should they not apply at all first time round, wait a year? Should they build more experience? What kind of tips do you have there?
So at NFTS we were a young group, but it was still, everyone was above 24. And the year above us, all the directors were in their 30s. So I wouldn't worry too much if you apply straight after Bournemouth and don't get in. I think they are looking for people who... And also I think it helped that I was trying to make short films by myself for a year as well after Bournemouth. But I know a lot of people in my year, for example, only got in on the second or third application.
Right.
So rejections are quite commonplace. And reapplying is common as well.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to you shortly. Jean-Clement, similar. You could give us a sort of précis of your career.
Hello, everyone. Well, I started back in the 18th century. So I went to uni. I studied audiovisual technology, and I actually wanted to be a sound mixer. So I sent CVs everywhere after I graduated, and I realized that there was few opportunities to be a sound mixer. I had to be a bit patient. But I ended up working in a processing lab where they had telecine machines, basically transfer machines. You put a piece of film on a telecine and then you record on videotape. And I was mastering for TV channels. So I was watching pretty much 2 films a day, which was great. Mostly recent movies, but also old one, classics, archive material, So I, over the years, I developed that sort of, culture of, image film aesthetic, because there was such a variety of material I was transferring. I don't know if you've heard of the Technicolor dye transfer process, or the flammable film, or hand-painted techniques. I mean, you name it, I've seen, a lot of that stuff, as well as, very recent film that was being transferred and archived until they had the right to broadcast those films. And then I moved onto commercials. It was really the beginning of post-production. They were looking for people who knew how to operate the machine, but also it was getting more and more artistic, in the sense you could intervene on the image. It was not just a technical transfer. It was you could go, brighter, darker, red, green, blue, etc. But it was still very rudimentary. But I could see the potential with the technology moving fast, and also I was starting to work with clients, directors and DPs, and that's how you build a reputation, word of mouth, and you get repeat business. And then it was the beginning of music videos as well, so very interesting new area to explore. And then I moved in the UK, and still working on commercials, and I was very lucky to meet Danny Boyle, who was looking around for a colorist. It was the beginning of digital intermediate, where instead of color timing movies, you actually grade them shot by shot. And he had never done that before, so he was looking for someone to color his film, and it was 28 days later, all shot on video on Canon XL1, and even the DP didn't really know what to do with it, how to make it look good. So they went around a few poster houses, and then they came back to me and said, yeah, your work really stood out, so we're working with you. And after that, I've done all these movies. So, a bit of opportunity, luck, hard work, and so yeah, that's how I ended up where I am.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Any questions at this moment? I can start things off. Anyone that wants to ask something? Yeah, James?
Sorry, I had a question to Alice. When you're looking at projects and things for the first time, from the BFI perspective, are you more focused on the people pitching it, or the projects and the ideas behind it themselves?
It's really a combination of both. So when we're assessing applications, so BFI Network, just to clarify, we look after the short film production fund and the early feature development fund. It's the central London team that look after the feature film development and production. So when we're assessing projects, we're looking at talent at a very early stage in their career. So in terms of their previous work, we're not necessarily looking for that to be really sort of polished or sort of high spec. We would expect a body of work. That's quite important for us to sort of see, especially for the director to see, to get a sense of them and of their sort of directorial style and vision. So the body of work's important. The story you come to us with is really important as well, because we would be looking for things that feel distinctive, that feel like we either haven't seen them before or they're showing us a new perspective. But part of what we do is support the progression of teams as well. So it's kind of everything together. There's not really one bit that's necessarily more important. So I think when you're putting together an application, having an awareness of that, BFI Network funds are there to help talent progress to the next step. So being really clear about what that project does for you as a filmmaker and for you as a collaborative team is quite important as well.
Okay. Anyone else just now? Okay. Come back in a minute. I'm interested to find out what your views are, particularly maybe David and Jean-Clement, about what you think the key attributes and skills are of people who've managed to find their way up the levels in the way that you both have. We talk an awful lot on this course about, of course, the importance of technical skills, but also you've already mentioned, David, that there's this focus on the more what you call soft skills, I suppose, being able to get on with people, collaboration, and so on. And I think people get tired of us banging on about the importance of collaboration, but from your both of your experiences, is that what kind of how important are those skills alongside the technical, and can you give us some examples of maybe how that's worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the technical side of things, anybody can learn it. It's just, yeah, your personality and your engagement, your way you collaborate with your clients, and your yes can do attitude is extremely important, of course, because for collaborating, for instance, you're dealing with kind of short time. I mean, it takes you about a couple of weeks to work on a feature, but a commercial is like 1 day, sometimes 2, and some directors shoot 1-2 commercials a year. So for them, when they come to collaborating, it's like one of the most important days of the whole year for them. I do this every day, but for them, it's like that particular day is the most important. So you have to really make sure that you give it all the attention, and you make them feel that, yes, you understand this is a very important day for you. I'm going to do my 100% best. And yeah, you need to show you're very motivated, very interested. I mean, it just goes without saying. It starts by knowing how to say hello, shake a hand. Inspiring confidence. People come to work with you because they trust you, because they trust your judgment, but also because you're a nice person.
Everyone here is a nice
person.
person.
Room with someone, you might as well get along together also on a personal level, and sometimes have become friends.
And how, maybe David, we're in the process at the moment of moving into pre-production and production on the graduation films. You'll remember that, Myriam, as well, in which sometimes, friends over a period of 2 or 3 years start to rub against each other a bit, and tensions start to rise and so on. Is that what advice would you have for people in that position?
Forgiving and understanding is a big thing. One thing I've learned over my time is that producers and when you're technical crew, it can be very easy to feel frustrated by someone who's trying to do something creative, but then they're never out to get you. No one's ever out to get anyone else on a film set. Mm-hmm. It's never a personal thing, really. And it's just, if something happens in the heat of the moment, it's the ability to just brush it off and let it go is absolutely vital. And especially if you're doing a long career, it's almost the same in that instance, that as a sound crew, we're on set every day, and a director, a big director will do one film every 3 years. So for them, it's the absolute focus of what they're doing, and they expect 100. They're giving 110, 120%, and you have to be understanding of that and supportive of that. That's the most important thing from a sort of conflict resolution point of view. Yeah. The other side of it is what I can sort of add is my team. If I'm bringing a team on, they are my representatives on the floor. So when you mix, I'm often behind a trolley. I'm slightly set back from the set, and the boom operators and the sound assistants will be operating with the actors, the director, the focus pullers, the camera operators. So I bring on people that I feel represent me well, and that supportive attitude that I like to bring to a film set. And that's really, really important when you're a trainee, especially, is trying to understand the way the mixer wants to work, or the way your HOD wants to work, and represent that on the floor.
So it's basically being adaptable to the specific HOD that you're working with at that time. Someone might want more proactive, someone might want you to stay back.
And certainly it comes back to finding your team. And I certainly want people who are lovely and just try and get on with people and don't let everything wash over them really.
Myriam, you're almost on the other side at the moment. You're writer, director. What kind of people do you want around you on your crew?
So with NFTS, for example, I worked with the same HODs on 3 separate films, and the collaborative process has been probably one of the most, it's been so important. I think it's really hard sometimes for student directors, but you have to leave your ego behind, and you have to understand that everyone is working for the best of the film, and sometimes you might not have the greatest ideas, your team members might do. Like, you have to be able to listen to other people, not micromanage and not be controlling. But it's been quite unusual in that I've been involving my cinematographer and editor and composer in the script process very early on, and we've talked about, I would share drafts with them, and we would have meetings beforehand, so everyone always gets involved pretty early. I think that's one way I've been avoiding any sort of conflict. And in film school, especially when you get paired with people you haven't chosen, you do kind of have to get on with it, and you don't have to work with them again afterwards, but always be nice to people, because it is an industry that relies on someone calling you up being like, oh, you worked with so-and-so, how were they? And same could be going for you. So always be nice to people. And if you didn't get on with someone because you both didn't agree on the vision of the film, that's fine. You just don't work with them afterwards. But I think respect is just basic. Yeah.
Great. Going back to Rochelle and Alice a bit more, one of the things, we've heard what it is that you both do. I remember putting you on the spot last year as well. I'll also do the same thing again. James touched on it a little bit. It's, I think that people sometimes find applications and training schemes and these kind of opportunities quite intimidating, and there's maybe a feeling that, oh well, there's so many people applying, it's not going to be me. What kind of advice could you both give to people to give them the best possible chance of being the application that doesn't go in the waste paper basket? What are those magic things that you're looking for training schemes and cash?
Oh, I was gonna request a pause to think about that. That's a really difficult question, and I'll sort of talk from a funding point of view, I suppose, because there is limited funding out there. We can't fund all of the films that come into us, and so part of that is there will be quite a lot of rejections, and that is also part of what you'll need to get used to, and sort of taking those rejections. And if you are really heart set on NFTS or something else, reapplying, not letting those rejections necessarily stop you on that path. What makes an application stand out for us from a creative point of view, so from a sort of writer-director point of view and a producer point of view as well, which is a creative role as far as we're concerned. We see the producer role as a core creative part of that team. We're really looking for filmmakers that know what it is they want to say with their work, and that have something specific to say. We're looking for filmmakers that have a really sort of strong sense of the stories that they want to tell, and have put a body of work together, or have gone out there and actually not waited for permission to make stuff. I think that's really important as well, because there isn't a huge amount of funding out there. So like Myriam was saying, having sort of made your shorts, even if they're super low budget, even if they're no budget, the fact that you are creating and showing your direction, development as a creative individual is definitely something we're looking for as well. But I think, having a really clear sense of the stories you want to tell, knowing what you want to say. And we use the word authenticity quite a lot, and you'll hear that quite a lot, and it can sometimes be overused, I think, but it is really important about the stories you want to tell and having an authentic reason to tell them, and that they feel authentic. To us, that's really important as well. That's some top level stuff.
Thanks. Sure.
Okay, so I don't work directly with the trainee finder team, but from what I've understand, what they've told me is that in terms of applications, they're always looking for someone that's clear about what they want to do. So essentially, they've applied for a certain department, i.e. the camera department. They've been clear to be like why they want to work in the camera department, what is it that intrigues them, and where they see themselves later on down the line. So that way they know, right, this person's very serious and very passionate about working in the industry, be that if it's film or TV drama. And also to add on to what Alice said, if you get rejected, it's fine, just apply again. And I know the team remember the people who have applied previously, and they look for that growth in the application to see, right, okay, they weren't successful last year, but let's see what they've done this year. And once again, just keep applying and reapplying, essentially.
And another thing I'd say is maybe if you do get an opportunity to ask for feedback on any rejections that you get. I mean, I'm sort of dropping myself in hot water here because we don't automatically give feedback on applications that are unsuccessful, and we can't offer that in every instance. But if people ask me for feedback and I'm able to give them something that's constructive, then I will try. And you won't always be given feedback, but I think if you do have an opportunity to ask for it, whether that's in an interview situation, whether you've done a trainee placement and you want some feedback at the end of that, I think that's really good to get into the habit of asking for that.
Okay, thanks. More for the three of you in the middle. We're constantly talking on the course about trying to change the course to reflect changes in the industry without losing what makes the course special, I suppose. Jean-Clement, you've already alluded to this, that you were in the right place at the right time and you adapted to what Danny Boyle was wanting, and then everything moved on from there. What advice, as much for the course as it is for the students out there, within the industry, can you see things moving in any specific direction that people should be thinking of, aware of? Obviously, it's a film production course, but clearly high-end TV is so important now.
Yeah, I mean, there is a big demand of the industry for people working in post-production, because the VFX industry is really booming. So all these shows being made. Yeah, there are lots of opportunities in post-production, and post-production may not be what you intended to do. Like, I wanted to be sound mixer and did up color grading images, but actually it's a quite really interesting job. I mean, I love it. I decided not to go back to sound mixing. Retrospectively, I made the right choice, but what I mean is that you might end up working in post-production, but you actually do work with directors, and also you're involved at the pre-production stage because they need advice of how to shoot it and how the VFX are going to help. What you can't do on set, you're going to do it in VFX. So you can see the whole process of thinking, of starting from an idea, how it's being developed by the director, how they're going to shoot it, how they are going to edit it, how the effects are going to be done, and how you're going to finish it. And you're part of all of that. So you still can become a director if you want to, having learned from other directors, and I've been in the front line of how things are made. Then you can perfectly, integrate all this knowledge and say, well, sure, I'm going to do my own stuff now. And I've seen that. Or people working in advertising agencies become directors because they know they've learned from us. They've learned from the people they've been working with.
You guys?
I can use a specific example, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't think a film like 1917 could have been made 10 years ago. They were using every single cutting-edge piece of camera technology they possibly could. And also visual effects, the stitches between the two things, they had to sort of make a rough cut of rehearsals to even work out how they were going to be able to do the film. So the technology's moved on to that point, and it's things like how small the camera is. They built a small stabilized head that could go on a steady all these kind of things where your ability to tell a story through the camera from a creative point of view for people like yourself is the best it's ever been, as far as I can see. And from our point of view, one thing's quite nice is that actor's performance and recording that doesn't change. So the actual performance side of things is still the same. It's just the technology around that you get to be able to use helps you get it better. Like ADR, so automated dialogue replacement in films, is way down on what it used to be, because we have radio mics and certain techniques on set that mean we're able to capture performance better than we used to. For example, 1917, there's 2 lines of technical ADR because the director wanted the original performances, and without, we had various things, big RF networks and things, and without that stuff we couldn't have got the performance, and they'd have had to have done it again with a coffee in hand in Soho, and it just wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah. So I mean, that leads me to ask, obviously another thing that happens when you're doing a film course is that a number of the students at certain points will feel like they look out in the industry and they see certain things happening like you're describing, and they think, well, we're not learning that on this course, therefore I'm not going to get a job. So how far should we be reflecting these changes, or how far should we just focus on the sort of traditional skills and then they learn as they go?
From my point of view, everything can be taught in terms of my sound recording job. If you give me someone with the right attitude and the right, you call it soft skills, but personality, I can get, if that person's going to work well, as long as they have the aptitude, I can teach them the technical stuff. What doesn't change is the core reasons for making a film, so performance and drama and all those sort of things. So that's the kind of thing. If you get your core correct, you can learn the new technology. In my opinion.
Right. I mean, for both of you, would you do anything differently now if you were graduating this year? I mean, it was what, Myriam, you were 2015, so having seen how the industry works, would you have chosen any different path at that point if you were graduating next year, if you were these guys?
No, I mean, in terms of shifting industries as well, like TV is, especially Netflix, actually is becoming so much more of an option than it was when I graduated. And I remember thinking, is it like a whole different ball game being on a set directing TV or Netflix than it is directing film? But I mean, like David said, you adapt yourself. The core doesn't change. But yeah, Netflix is becoming so much bigger, and it's giving opportunities to newer people. So I think that's definitely something quite exciting. But in terms of learning to direct, I don't think there's anything new that needs to be taught for that. Yeah.
Well, how do you teach directing? That's another question. A longer conversation. Questions, please. Remember, I said at the start, this is your opportunity. Stick your hands up. I can't talk for the whole time. Yeah.
There will be a lot of time in between the jobs that come to you, and that's something that I'm terrified of. How do you deal with the time between the employment opportunities that you have?
For example, I'm developing 3 features at the moment as well. So in between directing jobs, I would be writing. And if you don't have a development contract or deal and you're not being paid to write, shouldn't be stopping you from still coming up with ideas. To be fair, before going to NFTS, it was quite time consuming to be Googling a lot of opportunities and applying, doing a lot of applications for things like BFI, Random Acts. So there needs to be, I think you do need to be quite good at managing your own time, especially after you've come out of education and it's just the whole wide world. But you can also be reading a lot, and I think a lot of people forget to have hobbies outside of film. Not everything can just be film. But I would say between developing and applying for projects and strengthening your relationships with people that you work with. But as a director, jobs are pretty far in between. So I don't know about you guys, you probably work a lot.
Stick with your friends. That's a really big one. I had a really lovely group there's 5 of us, and we all now work professionally in sound, and if we would throw jobs between us, and without that, I'm not sure any of us would have been able to make it up.
Is that friends from the course originally?
From the course, yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, and I still work with them. I did my first film I mixed for an ex-graduate guy called Nick Rowland, who's my friend primarily, and then
He's coming in on Thursday.
Oh, is it? Very good. Say hi. So that these relationships that you have now are what will carry you, genuinely what will carry you through what can be tough between projects. From a technical point of view, I also didn't just do films and I also did reality TV and outside broadcast and things outside of knowing that if I got a film job, I had to make some quite tough choices and burn some few bridges knowing my path. So I concentrated on the film jobs, but then would learn a lot of other things around that to support that work.
So early on you were taking mostly everything you were offered, but now you can be more selective, I suppose.
Well.
Well, I'm not freelance, so I'm on the payroll, so I don't have that insecurity. But I've got work every day, and so I've never really experienced that problem. But I work with a lot of directors who I can see are not busy between jobs. I mean, advertising, they are very well paid, so they can afford to not work for a while. But I mean, I know directors who do photography, they do a bit of fashion. There is a group of Swedish directors called Acne. They design jeans. They anything that is creative and artistic is, that it's you do whatever you want. I mean, film advertising is often a way to fund other more interesting stuff. There is, people like you, you've done a short film and you might do a commercial, and that will give you funding to do other personal things. So, don't have an expensive lifestyle, and that's what I would say, and concentrate on anything that can give you, exposure and make you look like a creative person. But also, you get a lot of scripts, and then you need to write treatments. That takes a big part of your time. You go see film productions, show them the work you've done, selling yourself, putting stuff on Instagram, etc. It takes. You need to be your own best advocate, and that takes time to do that. So that should keep you busy between projects.
That's another thing that I think some people have. Some people it comes naturally. Others find it quite difficult. Is to sell yourself as an entity. So, would you advise that everybody? We're kind of advising they do this, set up their own website and be have a calling card in that kind of sense. Have you all got your own websites and stuff?
Yeah, I just made one.
You just made one.
I don't know. I don't think it's. I mean, I've seen it really work for people. Like my friends who are cinematographers have been contacted because of the stills they put online, and I'm awful at Instagram. I've got like 20 posts, but I don't think it hurts. I think it's really good. I mean, people will Google you if you're a director or whatever, and to have a website come up is incredibly important, and at least have like trailers and things like that online so people can check out your work easily. But yeah, if you're good at Instagram, then that's awesome.
David, have you got?
Can I ask yourself, do you ever see people overselling themselves? Or is there...
I think that sometimes emerging filmmakers can get a bit busy with the laurels on posters. So having your film posters kind of covered in a lot of laurels of sort of maybe smaller festivals, I'd sort of really think about that as an approach. That can kind of I mean, over promoting yourself, I don't know if it's something I see necessarily apart from that part of it. I think You also have to think about how you're going to manage your time, I suppose, in terms of, do you have time to run a Twitter feed for every short film you're doing? Like, is that really realistic, or do you just harness it all back to your one website or your one own Twitter feed? Just being really realistic about what you can manage capacity-wise from a sort of profile point of view.
Rochelle's the same with you, do you think? I mean, when you get applications in, both of you, do you obviously you'll get website links and so on, but is there the time to look at these things? Do you look at the wider profile of the applicants?
So we have something called the post room. So I'd advise you all to have a look at that now. Actually, it's called the BFI Network Post Room, and that's the main space we go to look at people's body of work. So you have to create a profile on there and upload your work, and you can do that before you've put in an application, and that's where we also go to kind of look for new talent and look for new content. So we would go to the post room first, but then after that, yes, I would sometimes do some wider searching on those filmmakers if I wanted to get a bit more information, but we go to the post room first.
And to add, so ScreenSkills, people can create an account, and that's really important as well when you're applying for Trainee Finder or any of our programs as well. And we've actually had many people, production people, try and find talent as well, just going through the ScreenSkills account. So I highly recommend that you create an account and create a really strong online presence, and that really does help for Trainee Finder application.
Okay, great. More questions, please? Yep.
So just kind of following on from the gaps in between opportunities, and you kind of mentioned it, the ability to kind of say no to jobs is quite a scary prospect for me personally, like the idea of turning down an opportunity but knowing that like it wouldn't be right for me, or I'd be putting my health at risk kind of thing if I was overworking. That kind of is quite a scary thing. So are there any steps you took or any like things you could advise on kind of like just doing that?
Being selective.
I would say at the start, say yes to absolutely everything you possibly can and do as much as you can. You never know who you'll meet through doing things that might not seem totally relevant, but and you'll be learning your skills in whatever environment you can at the start. What I got told by someone is that there will come a point where you'll be lying awake at night and you'll have a job and someone will have just offered you this other amazing job, and you're lying there thinking, which should I take? And you just got to go with your gut on that one. And that's the time when I've only ever said, I've rarely, even in all my work, try and not say no to anything. The only time I've ever done anything is that an opportunity came up that you know in your heart you have to take. And people are really understanding, actually. I found if you say, look, I'm so sorry, I've got this is it for me, and people generally, because they see themselves in your shoes as well. So if I've never really had anyone, I've never really had a problem with that, I have to say, but I have definitely lain awake stressing about which wonderful opportunity to take. So that's not a terrible thing, but in terms of saying no, try not to, at least at the start, would be my advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Say yes to everything, and even if that's going to work you to death and going to be badly paid and work until 6 in the morning, just do it, because you never know. You might be working with the next Spielberg or whoever that is. I've personally had that experience working in the early days of music videos with people. I thought, this is just a joke. It's all done with cardboard tape and polystyrene, and at the end he became one of the legends of music video. So, and I'm glad that I took it seriously, but at the beginning I was like, well, what's that? So, and it's also, you need to invest in young directors. So you need to develop your client base. I may speak for myself. So even if you can't do the job yourself, you know someone who can do it that you can recommend. But you want to help the new generation of directors, because you never know, they might be really big directors tomorrow. It's it's investing in people.
It's kind of
that's a really good
along
point,
with what
actually,
David was
in
saying.
that, coming to that, the reason I haven't had a problem, I think, is because if I couldn't do it, I put one of my good mates from Bournemouth onto it instead, who are lovely and fantastic and probably better than me. So that group is definitely what's helped me in those situations.
Well, you've got more to choose from now, obviously, after the end of today. Yeah. More questions, please? Yep. Just a sec.
So it's for Myriam. I was going to say, so when you're trying to sell a film idea to, say, like a scheme like ScreenSkills, how do you balance between trying to make it a sellable idea and sticking to, you know, your creative guns and everything with the story?
So do you mean like meeting producers and then pitching them possible ideas for a feature film?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like how do you like balance between like thinking I need to sell this idea
Mhm.
and making it sellable and commercial, but then wanting to stick to like the core of
Okay.
your idea?
I haven't really been thinking about making ideas sellable and commercial in that sense, but I think so. What I think has been important for me is over all the shorts I've made is focusing on what it is I'm trying to say about things that I'm interested in, and what my perspective is on these issues. So first of all is what is it that I want to speak about? Secondly, how do I want to talk about it? And then thirdly is why do I want to talk about it? So these are like the cores to my voice, let's say, or vision. And then it's been about meeting producers who will be like, okay, we really enjoyed what you did there. Do you have any other ideas? And then if I explain to them, well, there's this idea I want to talk about and this is what I'm interested in, if they're the right producer for you, they will see that rather than try and mold it into making it more commercial. Schemes like the BFI, for example, which I've got the early development fund for a feature film, they are more interested in, I think they're more interested in developing you as a filmmaker rather than developing sellable ideas at this stage. So I would say very early on in your career, you don't need to worry too much about what will sell to an audience. More, I would say you should focus on what is it you are trying to say to an audience. And if someone else sees it too, then it will work. But early on, I would say you just really need to develop yourself rather than what you think the commercial idea might be. Do you know what I mean? And then, yeah, so for example, right now I'm developing with Film 4, and they've been very hands-off on what it is that they think I should write. So people, when you're a director-writer, if they trust you, they will trust you. So you can have a bit more lead. And if you've got a really good producer, they will also help guide you on that. But I would never sort of fit myself into a box beforehand or too early. Do you know what I mean? So, sorry if I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
It kind of links in with Alice's point about authenticity, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
it's what you're looking for a filmmaker rather than a sellable idea.
Yeah, totally, and to sort of to completely echo what Myriam said, BFI and BFI Network aren't looking for commercial projects. We're looking for culturally progressive work. We distribute national funds, and it's quite a privileged position to be in, really, because we don't need to see, well, in terms of the shorts, we don't need to see a return on that. So we're using that because we're interested in the filmmaker's voice. Finding those distinctive voices. I totally echo everything that checklist Myriam gave you is a good checklist to have in your head. So for us, the commercial side of it doesn't matter. And obviously, as you progress further, and if you are going into more of a commercial sphere, then that's something you deal with at that point. But you're not going to get to that point until you've defined yourself as a kind of, as an interesting new voice that can get in that room in the first place, if that makes sense. So I'd echo, focus on your own creative vision and your creative process and progression first.
But can I say something? I mean, from a practical point of view, you can make a mood board. You can pick images that either you've made yourself or you've picked from anywhere on the internet. Some people go as far as editing a little trailer, or they can shoot a little trailer, put together just to give an idea of what the project might be. Or sometimes you just assemble a little edit, a mock-up of what the film would be using bits of movies, of anything you can find on the internet, put a bit of music on it or a bit of dialogue. I know someone who shoots actually enacts the film, and he films himself in his kitchen. It does the whole comedy, and sounds like, I say, well, do you want to finance that? And you know, it's almost.
It works.
Yeah, it works. It's almost. It's really hilarious, and it's sometimes almost better than the actual film. Right?
Great. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Sorry, I can't really see people's faces here.
You mentioned that you would say yes to every opportunity that you'd get. I'm assuming that was quite a lot of time. It was quite time consuming, and that your schedule was probably quite full up. How did you handle still being able to see family and friends, or did you have to sacrifice in that department of your life?
The reality is that yes, you do have to put. If you're going to go and do it, at least at the start, you have to give everything to it. That's not to say that if it's becoming too much, you obviously shouldn't. But I found that I just enjoyed it all so much. I can only speak from personal experience that I was happy to put. And also, I moved to London to a terrible house with 4 lovely people. And so we were all in the same boat, doing the same thing. So my support network, I had a support network because we were all doing the same thing. So I would say, I wouldn't be so brazen to say, you have to have a support network in place, I do think. But I enjoyed the fact that my support network, and it has been throughout my life really, we've all been on the same path. So we were able to support each other when someone's up or someone's down, and you know, that was a really positive thing. Does that answer?
Yeah, I mean it's tough, yeah, that's for sure, because you start a job and finishes when it finishes. That can take you late at night, or sometimes there's a deadline, and you need to work several weekends in a row. But yeah, at least at the beginning of your career, yes, I mean you say yes to everything, and you work very hard. I've personally turned down several Hollywood projects because that meant spending 2 months in LA, and I thought that was too tough for the family, so I didn't go. So that's a choice I've made. But I've been working for 30 years in the business, so I can afford to do that. But certainly at the beginning of the career, I would have jumped on that opportunity the minute it came up, of course.
Yeah. Any other ones? Yeah.
Are there any opportunities that you regret taking, and how has that informed your decision in future opportunities? And on top of that, what keeps you motivated in doing what you do, saying that, yeah, I could do this until I'm old and I die?
Did we say that?
I mean, it's a very different job now I'm doing compared to when I started 30 years ago, because technology has moved on so much. I mean, remember, there was no internet when I started. It was all on tape. There was no files. It was just a very different world. So it's a different job that's evolved quite a bit, but also the way people relate to each other has changed very much. Now you can make changes until the very last minute. So the creative process is not as sequential as it was. It's a continuous thing that evolves in, by itself until the last minute, until there is an air date or delivery date, and then it stops. But up until the last minute, that process is active. So the changes are keeping me motivated and interested. But also, with experience and age, you get onto bigger and bigger stuff and more interesting. So that's also what keeps you motivated.
And because Tao's digging, is there anything you regret from your past that you think? Well, I suppose it's the one piece of advice you would give people, that you can make a mistake and still recover from it and move on.
Yeah, there are some projects that you think you should not have worked on because they were terrible and spend a lot of time, and then they get slated, or nobody watches them, bombs at the box office, and that's it. So yeah, retrospectively, but you shouldn't have any regrets really. I've always made the best decision, the decision I thought was the best at that time.
Everything I've ever been on has been a learning experience, and I've come away from that stronger in all aspects, except for one particular thing that I did. That
Which was?
I beat my boss at poker, and as I big chip bullied him and went all in, I thought, I'm never going to hear from this man again, and I didn't. He never gave me a job after that. So this was kind of outside of work. I just remember, because I was an assistant, I was covering the other assistant, I just remember thinking, I've screwed this up. And
Was it a substantially enough amount of money to not...
When I was a
worry about
trainee,
it?
do you know what it was?
Yeah.
And that's why I went for it, yeah.
Just one more thing, with time there is sort of like a natural selection that happens. The people that get along with you, that like you, they come back, and the ones you didn't have such a experience, they don't come back.
Mm.
So that's a kind of luxury you have after a few years. You enjoy working with the nice people.
How many people want to be trainees and do a technical, like camera or sound or props or anything? Okay, a few. And I mean, finding your team is the thing. It's finding the people that like you and you like them, and you enjoy going to work with them, and the boss is happy when you turn up, and that's the key thing, is find your people.
I mean, I think like you, a lot of them already have built these teams within the wider team. So, Myriam, anything you already think, oh my goodness, I wish I'd not done that, but it's turned out all right anyway?
I mean, I guess as a director, agreeing to direct something, don't agree to direct something you don't feel passionate about. But it's not like I don't regret it. It's just, I've learned from it, definitely, and I have gone up for a TV show and interviewed, and then decided, if I take this, I'm going to regret it.
Right.
Because it's not right for me. And I'm glad. So I think turn down things as a director anyway, turn down things you're not going to be passionate about, because there's nothing worse than leading a whole team of people on something you don't even want to be on. But I haven't really regretted it. It's just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Yep, up there.
Hi, in terms of saying yes to everything, I was wondering, like, as a director, do you say yes to, because I heard that TV directors, like, the contents are more of the showrunner's idea instead of a director. So if you want to be creative, do you still say yes to the TV, or do you stick to films?
I'm going to be honest, when I started my career, obviously, like, early on, I was like, or at least when I went into film, I was like, I'm only going to be a film director, blah, blah, TV, but as the years have gone on, like, TV's been changing a lot. You will go into meetings and I've been asked if I have original ideas for TV. I don't, to be honest, but I have found myself be really excited about wanting to direct certain TV series. So I do think TV is really exciting, and if it's something you haven't considered before, it's definitely worth thinking about. And I'm, for example, in directing, I'm most interested in characters and relationships, and with TV, there's, you are developing this for a substantial amount of time, but also it works differently. Like on some Netflix stuff, you would only be directing an episode or a block, not the whole series. And to be honest, it also depends on which series you go on to. Some series have very definite styles already set in, and the actors know their characters, so you're not necessarily directing that part so much. But for example, with Top Boy, I don't know if you guys have seen the last season, there were 4 different directors, and you can really see the different styles on that. They were very open to the directors just bringing in whatever they wanted to do with that. So you might find the right series for you and say yes to it, but I don't think, I'm not precious about always having to direct something I've written, and because you do learn a lot by directing things you haven't necessarily created. It is a craft at the end, so yeah.
It's for timing reasons that it's not the same director throughout the series. It's because you shoot an episode and then you go edit it, and while they are shooting the number two, so you have to use a different director. It's for that reason. It's purely for timing, because they are shot back to back because of the availability of the actors. That's why they use different directors. But I must say, for all the shows I've worked on, the director is always a very respected figure. His opinion is always the first one that's taken into consideration. There is always lots of executive producers. I don't know what they do exactly, but they are hovering around. But the director is the leading point, really. It's not that he or she has the last word, but he's the conductor.
Okay. Any more questions, please? Any more? Okay, we're approaching. Yep, another one from Spencer.
So this is directed towards Myriam. You say that you're directing things now, like actively being sought out for directing. I am curious, what are the benefits that you see to returning to academia and pursuing further studies?
I mean, NFTS is incredibly practical. Okay, so I picked AUB as well because it was very practical. I think it still is. And for me, it was about getting to be on projects. Practicing within an educational setting means that it's pretty low risk. It took me a year to get funding from Creative England, whereas at NFTS, within a year, I'd made four films. So that was the benefit for me to go to NFTS. It was to meet other like-minded people who were there specializing in their craft. And it's such a contained environment. You get to meet other graders and composers and mixers. So that was incredible. Whereas I think out of education, I would have had to go to a lot of events or get on set as a runner or something to meet other people. So being at NFTS kind of fast tracks that. As a director as well, being at NFTS, they let you make mistakes. They hold you accountable for your mistakes, and you get a lot of freedom because you're not taking money in from someone and having to answer to execs. You're just there to learn. So that's what was probably really beneficial. In terms of the career part, so my agent is the one who's now helping quite a bit, and I got an agent halfway through second year. So that's what's sort of pushing things forward now. But if you ask, sorry, does that answer your question as to why? Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Just talking about the agent, what's that sort of process? How do you begin to find one? Do they come to you? Where do you sort of start with that?
So if you go to NFTS, at the end of second year, so the course is only 2 years, but at the end of the year, they take you around to meet all the agents, and then the agents give you information and they get to know you. What happened with me was a producer I was working with sent my work to a couple of agents, just cold emailing saying, oh, I know so-and-so, this is a film she's made, can you have a look? And some agents got back and then asked to meet. Choosing an agent is as much about you trying to find the right person as it is for them to find the right client that they want to represent. So I met a couple before before deciding on the one I've got now. But yeah, that didn't happen until, just last year. So they do watch, they want to see that there's been a body of work or that there's something you want to say. And I think you have to find an agent that is genuinely passionate about what you're making and what you want to do and say. But yeah.
Okay. So same people again. Tal.
Now, I haven't been listening in class, but the thing that's been nagging at me for the past 3 years is, as a producer, how do you sell yourself? Stuff like websites and show reels are quite hard to, what does a producer put in a show reel, and what do you put on a website that isn't just spreadsheets or other stuff, whether it be creative and whatnot.
Maybe a question for Stephen Woolley later on.
Why would you not put the films you've produced on your website as a producer?
Well, you would, but it doesn't really show off the work that you specifically have done, or it's very hard to show off the work that you've done on a film as a producer, because you're not in charge of the framing or the directing of the actors.
I think because BFI Network is there to support new producers as well, very much so, and I definitely know in the Southwest there's a real lack of producers, so it's something that we're putting quite a lot of efforts and focus into. And I mean, as I said before, I think the producer role is such an integral role and is such a creative role as well. And if you are a creative producer, which I think all producers should be aspiring to be, then you are often involved in that project from the outset and working collaboratively. And I think what we look for in producers is the same as directors is, what are the stories they're making and that they're getting told, and that they do have a creative input into those, and that you're building it's quite useful to start thinking about how you're building a slate and sort of, are you going to be working with different talent? What are the sort of films that you want to make as a producer? So I think you can definitely have a creative presence because a producer is an inherently creative role. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but I think you should feel empowered as a producer that you are part of that process. You're not just the spreadsheet person.
No, of course.
Yeah.
So, but say for instance, I wanted to come and get you to hire me. What would you expect in terms of a portfolio? You don't want to just see spreadsheets, and I can give you a list of all the films I've done, but nothing there really shows off the work that I'm capable of doing. Whereas directing or cinematography, you can have, even editing, you can do specific show reels that shows off what you're capable of doing.
I suppose it depends what role you're kind of going for and sort of what you're wanting to use that for. So if you're wanting to use that for, to apply for funding as a producer for a film that you're creating, then we would again be looking at the producer, their body of work, their slate of work, the sort of talent they're working with. I think it's different if you're applying for, say, a line producer role or something. So it kind of depends. I'm happy to sort of pick up on that conversation in more detail if that's useful. But from our point of view, we're looking for BFI Network's point of view, we're looking for producers that are looking to create their own slate of work. So they're looking to develop talent as well and to develop those filmmakers and to maybe work with different filmmakers as well.
Shortage of producers in the Southwest. Okay, I think we're coming to the end now. Just one more there.
I've just got two quick questions. Does the funding also include documentaries? And also for Myriam, have you written a script that you've had to hand to another director, and how did you handle that process?
No, I haven't.
So there is funding for documentary, and it's distributed by an organisation called the Doc Society. So they have various calls, both in shorts and features. So if you kind of have a look on their website and follow them, they operate slightly differently in that they do have a call-based scheme with deadlines, whereas the fiction funding that we distribute is rolling. But it's worth, if you're a documentary maker, it's definitely worth looking up the Doc Society.
This is more of a general question. A lot of people are thinking about going to London after their graduation to pursue their career there, but London is a very expensive place. So, what would you say are other hotspots in UK to go to?
Come to Slough. I live in Slough, and I love Slough. But genuinely, it's very easy to connect from Slough to London. It takes me 15 minutes on the train, and the last train's running from Paddington at 2 a.m. I haven't felt the need yet to move to London. So I would say it depends though. Do you drive out to Pinewood and stuff?
Slough would be perfect if you're going to Pinewood and Easton. Yeah, I found the trainees that I'm working with now have based themselves near studios is a specific one that I've got, because if you get a long project, they're all quite flexible and they just go on short-term rents between. Each individual project seems to be what's happening at the moment with the people who are just coming in. And then that's quite good as well, because if you're in a house of trainees, then it comes back to that thing of you'll find out what they're on and who's doing what. And, but certainly they're all spread around the West, so exactly the kind of place that you are.
But outside of commuting to London in one way or the other, are there any other places in the UK that you would suggest that you've got connections in?
I'll just do my one. Is that the studio? I'm specifically based at the London studios, so that's where my work seems to have been. But there's Cardiff's massive.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to hand over to yourself here, because that's your...
Well, I'm going to get in trouble if I say anything other than the southwest, so I'm going to tell you all to stay in the southwest. Bristol is, and Bristol's great, and it's got a really thriving, a thriving screen industry, and it's also very close to Cardiff as well. So there are a lot of people that will kind of commute over to work in Cardiff too. So I don't think, obviously there are vast opportunities in London, but I think it is worth exploring other areas if that's not right for you. So yeah, have a look at Bristol as well.
I certainly work with people all the time that live in Bristol and just work in London when they need to, and live a much happier, healthier
and we've
lifestyle.
just we've just had the new Channel 4 hub that opened this week. So that's sort of bringing more, hopefully more commissioning opportunities to the region as well. And it has got a really thriving indie screen sector.
Also to add to that as well, Leeds and Manchester is also quite thriving as well, with a bit of film, but also TV drama as well, which is quite important. So Leeds and Manchester.
Newcastle, I know people.
Going ever further north.
Yeah.
Glasgow.
That's a thing too. Yeah.
Okay, maybe one last question. Yep.
Hi. Actually, I am asking this question from the perspective of an international student, because I have just 1 year of visa. So after graduating, what do you suggest? How do I get a work visa to stay back and work in the industry? Because what I have observed is most of the all the directors and technicians, they work freelance in the industry. So getting a work visa is not something that happens to the international students. So what is your suggestion? How do I go about it, or any international student, how does it work out?
Does anyone get any experience of this, working with people?
A friend of mine from NFTS, he was from Costa Rica, and it took him quite a while, but he managed to find a studio in a company or a studio in Cambridge that have basically sponsored him and paid for his visa, and he's now getting to stay in the UK. But it took him a while, so it was a lot of applying, and so I would say maybe start doing that now while you're still a student, and if there's any way, I mean, he got a bit of help from NFTS in just writing references and stuff.
Yeah, but there's a conflict there, because I'm focusing on screenwriting and direction,
okay.
and screenwriters don't get work that easily.
Yeah, he's in sound.
Do you suggest that I should also get into technical stuff and hone my technical skills so that I can be absorbed?
I think so. I mean, he's in sound, so he's employed in post-production.
It's easier for the technicians to get a...
Yeah, I think so.
I do know visual effects. I know people in visual effects who the effects company sponsors them, but that's again a technical. It's getting a job with a company that then would allow you to write outside of them potentially.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. Thanks to Alice, David, Rochelle, Myriam, Jean-Clement. This is just the first part, of course. Now, I know a number of you will have been wanting to ask questions, but probably a bit nervous about doing it in this forum. So the next stage is that we all go into the blue room, and you can approach in smaller groups and ask more specific questions. Don't all just go and ask David where it's like to work in Star Wars. There are other questions, obviously. So can we thank everybody for...